This is The Guardian.
Hello, I'm Faye Carruthers and welcome to The Guardian Women's Football Weekly. It has happened. After a year, 7 months, 8 days, Chelsea have been beaten and at home to boot, coming unstuck against Everton. Late goals rescued all 3 points for Arsenal and Spurs, while both Manchester clubs also won. And we'll cast our eye over The Guardian's annual 100 best female footballers in the world list. Tell us your thoughts. All of that, plus we'll take your questions. And that's today's Guardian Women's Football Weekly. What a panel we have today. And might I say, this is a pod first because we're in a studio together in person for the first time ever. I mean, I did remember that, we were in a Premier in 2022 after the Lionesses lifted the European Championship trophy. However, with Suzy Wrack and Johnny Lou on a bed and me and Salon Andy Hickman on either side of the room, it's not quite the same as these illustrious surroundings we find ourselves in. Suzy, how are you?
Yeah, it's nice to be sitting in a chair and not lying sort of flat on my back, pillows behind me with a mic hovering over me from a bedside table.
Well, listen, I mentioned right at the beginning about Everton. Normally, Marva Kreel, we only get you on when Everton have lost, which is quite regular, to be fair. But I don't think you've ever been on when Everton have won. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels special. Very special.
Well, you've taken the record as well, which is quite something. Rich Laverty, it is lovely to see you. Is this your pod debut?
It is, yeah.
But a pod debut and making history by being in the studio, that is special.
Yeah, I can't get the image of Suzy and Johnny now out of my head.
It was some sight, I have to say.
Did we even take photos? We should have taken photos.
Well,
I don't know if we did.
I think I did. And then we took a celebratory photo at the end.
Of us all on the bed. I remember that. It's all flashbacks.
I know. We'll have to post that up so you can all see it. It's quite a sight to behold. We might have had, I think we called it Pop. If you ever do want to listen back to that episode, it is a trip. Enjoy. Right, it's over. 585 days and 34 games later, Chelsea have finally been beaten in the WSL. Everton put in a heroic defensive performance to secure a 1-0 win at Kingsmeadow of all places, thanks to a first half goal from Honoka Hayashi. Marva, we've got to come to you first. What a time to get you on the pod. Honestly, I did that really girly. Oh, yay, Marva's on this week as well. That's even better. First win against Chelsea since 2013 as well, which is quite something. Second win of the season. How are you feeling?
Brilliant. Just brilliant. It was just one of those games that you score, and I think I even tweeted, I said, all right, just 18 minutes to hold on for now. And we've done it before against Chelsea where we scored, even in the kind of last 2 years, we've had actually some quite close calls and then also had a 5-0 battering. But we've had a few where you've gone, oh, okay, we kind of maybe deserve something here, but it's just never going to happen, is it? So when we went 1-0 up, I thought, and that early on, 11 minutes in, I thought, come on, it's just not going to happen. Lauren James is on the pitch, it's just not going to happen. And then she comes off of Sam Kerr, and you're going, right, okay, well, we've had our fun, but with 30 minutes left, it's all going to happen. And then post after post got hit, save after save. Brosnan just incredible. That Martina Fernandez goal line clearance. After that, I thought this might be our day because that doesn't usually happen to us.
Do you know what? I've been sat with you for about 25 minutes now and I've only just noticed your Everton sweatshirt merch.
I had to represent today.
Absolutely.
It's not often I get to wear
with pride.
Everton merchandise with pride, yeah.
And no Marouane Fellaini style hairstyle either.
I actually got my hair cut. So, yeah, maybe that's what that Man United fan with hair needs to do. He needs to get his hair cut already, and then they might start winning 5.
Well, they did. Yeah, I was going to say they did have a 4-1 win, didn't they? But it was against Wolves last night in the Premier League, so that doesn't count. Oh, I'm sorry. Go to Football Weekly for that kind of chat. Suzy, who is repping England today, I can't quite believe the run that Chelsea have been on. We joked about it, didn't we? That they might not win the title yet, still be unbeaten at the end of the season, which is quite incredible. So May 2024 was the last time they were beaten. Sonia Bompastor said it was just one of those days. And as Marva said, they did create 30 shots, but only 6 of them on target. Felt a little bit Arsenal-like. Where did it go wrong?
Savage. Yeah, just one of those days that they haven't had for a very long time. I just thought Everton were brilliant defensively. Ruby Mace was incredible, and you've kind of been waiting for her to have her moment since she moved from Arsenal to City, didn't really play, was a bit of a bit part, used in different positions when they had injuries, and then, you know, when she gets to Everton, you think, oh, finally, obviously she had the time at Leicester as well, she gets to Everton, you think, finally, is this going to be a team that is able to kind of get the best out of her? And we're sort of seeing the promise that she showed back then. But it's hard to pick out an individual from that defence because they were just so good. And I think there was an element of luck, as Marva said, with, you know, some of those goal line clearances, the ball almost going over and them celebrating like it had. I didn't think it had when I watched replays, but it's really hard to tell when you've not got goal line tech. But something isn't right about Chelsea at the moment. Something's not clicking, and I don't know what that is. I don't think they've looked a perfect side since Sonia came in. Like we sort of said all last season, they're a team that is gelling, they're coming together. They were a bit lucky in how bad everyone else was. They just had this mentality and vibe about them that meant they would win regardless of that, and they would fight it out, right? Like, and this time round, I thought the summer would be the difference. A full pre-season together again, like new players in, the squad a little bit more settled from the previous year. I thought they would really kick on performance-wise, and I don't think they quite have, and I don't really know why that is, whether it's the squad, whether it's too big, and then there's frustrations within it about who's playing, who's not. We've not seen like consistent, really, really good performances from them.
They've been getting over the line, haven't they?
Yeah.
Pretty much, but not necessarily in a swashbuckling way that we're maybe used to seeing from Chelsea. And we've made a lot, Rich, about that unbeaten run, but exactly as Suzy said, the form has been really inconsistent. Back-to-back draws against Arsenal and Liverpool, which now, after this defeat, leaves them 6 points behind Manchester City. If you're in Sonia Bompastor's shoes, what are you thinking? Are you starting to worry a little bit, or are you focusing on Champions League?
Yeah, I think you're starting to worry a little bit. I kind of agree with what Suzy just said in that it does look a little bit disjointed, and I think it was a shock in terms of it's come at home, it's come against Everton, obviously haven't had a easy season so far, but it kind of felt like it was coming, a defeat was coming. And I think you look at the table and, you know, the defensive record is still very impressive, but they're just lacking goals compared to the other top four teams. And I know it's a crazy thing to say about a Chelsea team, but, you know, maybe it will click. I mean, you know, Sam Kerr's obviously still coming back to full fitness. Ramirez hasn't been involved. You know, I think I saw Chelsea tweet on Sunday, I think it was Lauren James's first start in 255 days or something like that. So you're talking the start of this year, and it's just like Suzy said, it's just not quite clicking in that attack, and maybe when Sam's back up to full fitness and Ramirez is back in, and, you know, Lauren James is back to full fitness, then maybe it will. But yeah, there's work to do there, because I don't think anyone's kind of surprised that they have lost a game eventually, because it has felt like it's been coming.
And defensively, there's problems as well, right? Like in the fact that Millie Bright didn't play again, they play Lucy Bronze at centre back instead. Like, that's an interesting call. Don't really know what's going on there. But then also, I think you can't underestimate the loss of Hampton too. I can't remember the stats, but the games with her and without her this season, the results are quite different. And so when you are having those games where you're not having things fall quite the right way for you up front, they would at least keep a clean sheet. Some of the draws they've had this season, they've at least been able to kind of balance it out with decent defensive performances. But like, that is all a little bit ruptured as well at the moment. So it's like kind of every area of the pitch isn't perfect.
Equally, for Everton, it was. You know, which you know, you've not been able to say very much this season, Marva. Brian Sorensen, obviously delighted post-match. This is what he said: "I'm so proud, I'm so happy for them, because we had so much adversity at the start of the season. It was the second time we could put the same team out, which feels a little unreal." We've talked a lot about the squad depth and issues you've had with injuries. You mentioned Courtney Brosnan and how brilliant she was. Suzy mentioned Ruby Mace as well. But how else? Was there a mentality shift maybe that they had? Almost like, we're going to Kingsmeadow, we've got nothing to lose.
I've been saying for a while that I think we actually have been playing better in the last 2 seasons when we play against better teams than we do against the teams where we're trying to be the team in possession. And I think it's actually been, ironically, one of my biggest criticisms of Sorensen, because I think that we actually look a better team when we try and play defensive football. And now we have the players on the counter-attack to be able to actually do something. Whereas seasons before, you would try and hold off for a 0-0 or maybe a 1-1, maybe a 1-0 to us if we're lucky. But we wouldn't actually have the players on the counter-attack to get that goal. Then you're always on the back foot. Whereas that game against Man City, I think we were very it was unlucky to come away with no points there. And we've been seeing that a lot when we played against the better teams. It's because we just sit back and we've got a lot of defensive capability. What I don't think we have is the ability to really build for our midfield yet. I mean, Ghali's been missing as well. We've had some big players missing. I would say as well, Ramsey I don't think has been the best since she's come in. She's had a few good games, but Brosnan, you can just see she's like levels above, and I don't even think that's an insult to Ramsey. I think that's just Courtney Brosnan is actually one of the best goalkeepers in the WSL. So that was a huge to have her back. Having Gago back as well as being on and off injured, and then just being able to stick to that game plan. Ruby Mace has been playing centre back actually for the last few games and has done really, really well, which is a shame because I think her in that number 6 position could be the kind of answer to building our midfield, but I'll take it for now. And
maybe it's the turning point that you need.
Well, we've got Arsenal next, so maybe it's a similar type of game plan.
I think it could definitely be the turning point then, because actually we're going to go on to Arsenal now because Stina Blackstenius rescued them against Liverpool at the weekend. They won 2-1 in the end. It was a must-win game as well, Suzy, wasn't it? They had to dig deep. Wasteful once again in front of goal. There's a theme going on here. I love this from Renee Slagers. She said that her half-time team talk was the firmest it's ever been. I mean, that's not even that strong, really. It's firm, is it? You know, she didn't give them the hairdryer treatment, but she was unhappy with the lack of intensity. What did you make of their performance?
The first 20 minutes, they were phenomenal, which is what is so frustrating because as soon as the goal went in, they just sort of stepped back and just like let Liverpool into the game in a way, like so dominant. And it did look like up till that goal, they were literally going to blow them away and it would be, 4 or 5-0 even. It was really comprehensive. Olivia Smith was on a mission. Obviously, she gets the goal, but then something switched. And I don't know why that mental shift is happening in games. Like, it's only a 1-0 lead. It's so early on in the game. Why are you taking your foot off the gas as if, it's almost like they think, this is going to be a breeze. But forgetting that there's an opponent with desire and fight, and you give them an inch, any team, and they're going to sense that they can get something from it. And if players feel like there is something there to be gained against a big head, they will take it. And that's what Liverpool did essentially. And Arsenal were really on the back foot. And there was a shift after the break in that it was like then mostly Arsenal from that point once the equaliser had gone in and Renee did her not quite so hairdryer treatment at half time. But then you got the persistent problems that they've got, which are just creating really obvious chances at the moment, I think is a problem. Like, they dominate, they have all the ball, they get in good positions, but that final pass, that final effort and the space to take it just isn't there a lot of the time.
Like they're almost overcomplicating it a bit.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, the fact that Olivia Smith's goal was from the edge of the area, I think, speaks to part of the problem. Like, there's a lot of messing around in and around the box when it could be a lot more simple. Stina Blackstenius, she has to have 30 chances to get the goal, but she does get the goal after the 30 chances and she often gets the 30 chances. So there's positives there. She scored the harder of them, but I thought...
And she always scores a key goal.
I thought it was going to be one of those days, though. Like, it felt like Liverpool would catch them and get a winner even, or it would be another draw, which would have been disastrous. Like you said, it was a must-win. Every single game for Arsenal was a must-win if they want any kind of hope of Champions League or challenging at the top, which I think is probably pretty much gone. But the state of the league at the moment, who knows? I mean, obviously City are the ones to catch, and look great.
Olivia Smith, I mean, we always knew that she was going to be a fantastic signing. Player of the match performance and a spectacular goal. It was kind of inevitable she was going to score against her former club, Rich.
I was really amazed when I looked at this the other day that was the first time she scored since the opening day of the season. Probably one of the goals of the season on the opening day, just thinking she is going to rip it up this season. And then it's gone a little bit quiet and she's had some games where she's come off, she's had some games where she's come on. And like you say, looked like she was on a little bit of a mission maybe against her former team. But I genuinely think Olivia Smith has the potential to be one of the best players in the world. I really do, in the next 5 years. And I think it's going to take time. Obviously, like, she's still young and obviously she's working her way in at Arsenal, but I think you're seeing those little glimpses still. like Suzy said, you know, it wasn't a tap in, it's an edge of the box again, and I think that's what you're going to see from her a lot. And I think that's important for Arsenal because, like you say, you know, if the strikers are taking 30 chances to score and you've got someone that can do that, they used to have it obviously in say Jordan Nobbs, for example, you know, could do similar, and I think she's going to be a really top player.
Listen, don't say that because that means she's going to come into her peak ahead of the World Cup and we're bound to draw Canada. So don't say that. Bompastor also made Barclays WSL history, 4 goals in her first 5 starts. But actually, you know, Liverpool were brilliant defensively, I felt. Didn't make life easy for Arsenal. Marva, maybe... I wonder, and this is a strange thing to say, with a team that have actually been really struggling this season, but maybe that's been their best part of development under Gareth Taylor, potentially?
Yeah, I would say the last few games, they've really, really improved. And I think Liverpool fans can definitely... I think for a while they'd be watching their team saying, what are we doing here? What's happening? What's going on with our club? Even in terms of investment, which we've spoken a lot about. But I think in the last few games, despite some of the results in the end, I think they can go away going, we can actually see something building here and what we want to play. And I think with this game in particular, the only thing I'd say tactically that was a bit confusing for me was they seemed to be doing really well when they were playing in a low block. And then towards the end, as Arsenal were playing more balls over the top, they kind of conceded to that and started pushing forward more, which actually gave Blackstenius more space to get in behind. And like Suzy says, you know, you can't give her too many chances. I've just got to say as well, there's a brilliant tweet in the Woso culture now, which is you can give Stina 8 chances, but you cannot give her that 9th. And I think that exactly came true. But yeah, I think that Liverpool are really building. I think, unfortunately for them as well, they concede a lot of late goals and that's what they've got to get out. And I think, of course, squad depth comes into that because how can you keep pressing at that intensity? How can you keep defending at that intensity, which they were doing brilliantly? That's very unfair to expect of players when you don't have the depth to come in and the talent and quality to come in to do that. But there are good signs building there. And I think the way the league is this year, it does only really take one win to get you out of relegation trouble, or at least for that moment, and then obviously someone else wins and then you're back in relegation trouble. But
to me, to you.
Yeah, they're not quite adrift yet. So I think keep playing how they are and the points will come. We saw it against Brighton, they almost won. It was very unlucky. A point against Chelsea, almost a point against Arsenal. That's encouraging signs for them.
Well, the squad depth is a key point because Gareth Taylor was only able to name 4 outfield players on the bench, and one was a 16-year-old in Maisie Truman. He's spoken about the need to strengthen in the transfer window. Said, I've not had assurances, but we have had conversations. Sometimes players are more likely to move to get games when there's a major tournament in the summer, which there isn't. Okay, so that's potentially positive, but same old with Liverpool, isn't it, Suzy? You know, no assurances. That's a worry.
I mean, he was really, really honest in the press conference. Like, it was really refreshing. I've been really interested to see how he does this season because obviously he, you know, coached through City age groups before becoming City manager, and then at City you're given a lot of resource, and you could argue that in the time there his tenure was a bit of a failure in that with the resource they've got they should have walked away with more trophies. So I was really interested to see how he would do at a club where he's not completely embedded in the culture of it and the way it works, is given everything he needs, and is instead having to work with what he's got and fight for stuff. I was really curious. I think, as Marva said, he's done a great job on the pitch, particularly these past few games. Like, the signs of progress are there and the board need to back him. We asked him where they need to strengthen. He was literally every area of the pitch. There isn't a single position where we couldn't strengthen. We need lots of recruitment, and that was like the crux of, you know, the entire conversation about it. I think he wouldn't have necessarily come into that job if he hadn't have been given some assurances at the start of the season that he'd be able to do stuff, because he came in so late because of his contract with City that he wasn't able to have a huge amount of influence in the summer. So I think it's really important they give him money. So I think he's been on a journey in this first half of the season, and I'm excited to see what they do after Christmas, but I just really, really hope they back him, because come on, I mean, if ever there was a time, like, he's showing that there is there is an opportunity there to do something. Yeah.
Potential. Journey bingo, by the way. Ding, ding.
On a journey, on a journey.
And you talked about late goals as well, and there was plenty of drama at Brisbane Road, Rich. Tottenham Hotspur coming from behind to beat 10-player Aston Villa. They had Ocean Deslandes sent off for a second yellow card. They'd taken the lead as well, Villa, through Kirsty Hansen, but Bethany England levelled a minute later before Olivia Holt's 95th minute goal sealed all 3 points for Martin Ho's side. It was really important that they got that win, actually. They've actually gone 4 points clear of London City Lionesses in 5th. They're just 2 points behind Chelsea in 2nd. What has most impressed you with Martin Ho's side since he's taken over?
I think exactly what he said in an interview himself a few weeks ago that I read. I think he's changed the attitude. I think, he said last season they were maybe a little bit defeated towards the end of the season, and I think he's gone in there and tried to get them on the front foot, tried to restore some belief, some resilience, and they rode their luck a little bit, in the last few weeks. Like, I think he would have been disappointed with the London City game and shipping 4 goals like they did, and then, not capitalising on Sunday, obviously, when Villa went down to 10 players. But I think that was probably that biggest proving point of what he's done, because I think last season when Tottenham go 1-0 down there with 5 minutes to go, I don't think they get a result, let alone win the game. So to come back and actually, because they didn't have a massive shift in the summer. They didn't bring in a load of players and start again. The recruitment was very tailored, and I think, you look at what he's doing and, the sway that he has as well. He obviously bringing his old friend from Bran over in January, which is a incredible signing, because I think no offence to Tottenham, I think she could go and play for pretty much any club in Europe. We saw what she did over the international break again against Brazil, and she's an unbelievable player, and I think will take Tottenham up a level. And you look at the fact that they're clinging on to the coattails at the minute of, a few of the top teams that are underachieving. I'm not saying Tottenham are going to get in that top 3, but if they can keep picking up those results with that belief, and they add what they're going to add in January, I think he's gone in there with a fresh attitude of, this is who we are, this is who we're going to be. And because the squad isn't that different, they've made very tailored, good signings to add, I think, quality rather than quantity. And yeah, I think Sunday was the biggest, like I said, case of that so far, where you look at that and go, I don't think Tottenham come back last to even get a point. So to go and get 3 was, I think, a big, not a turning point, but sort of another landmark. But bring the bingo out again on the journey of their going on this season, but like another little dart on the dartboard kind of thing of we've turned another corner here.
Every time you think that Villa have turned a corner, they turn back round again and reverse. Back-to-back defeats now for Natalia Arroyo's side, Marva, and they will have definitely been eyeing up this game to get points from, so I'm sure she'll be really disappointed.
Yeah, and it was one that they could have, in the way that the game was going. It was a really sort of, especially in the second half, a very, very open game, which I think once, they went to 10 players, it just favoured Spurs in that sense. And I agree, I think Spurs don't win that game a year ago, but they just really stepped it up. Having said that, I actually thought Villa stepped it up when they got the red card, really sort of pushed forward. And one of Spurs' weaknesses is getting in behind their fullbacks, which they did, and a brilliant solo goal from Hansen. But I just think as it became more and more open and obviously more stretched because they had 10 players, it just favoured Spurs completely, whereas I think they could have just hung back a lot more. They conceded straight after scoring, basically. So that was just lack of organisation, really, which was a shame, because I think the way they played, it was a quite even game overall. That quick succession of goals reminded me of the game they played last season, where it was like Rachel Daly scored for Villa and then England scored straight away. It was very, very similar. This time you could just see the difference in quality that Spurs had over them, whereas I think last season those were 2 very even teams, and you can see the kind of pull away in quality that Spurs had compared to this Villa side.
Bit of disappointing news. I mean, we all saw what happened to Jess Naz, stretchered off in the 71st minute with a knee injury. I think we all thought the inevitable, and it has now been confirmed as an ACL. I was just looking, actually, that is the 8th ACL of the season. I think the reports last year was over 12 months. There were 10 in the WSL. We're 8 already, and we're not at the end of the year. So again, I think we'll look into that in more depth at some point. But that's it for part 1 of the Guardian Women's Football Weekly. In part 2, we're going to run through the rest of the WSL games and talk about all things Guardian Top 100. Welcome back to part 2 of the award-winning Guardian Women's Football Weekly. We actually have the award from the Football Supporters Association in the building. It's in the studio currently, and a lovely thing of beauty it is. I haven't picked it up yet, but I've been well informed it's very heavy. We'll take a photo and put that up on socials at some point. Let's go through the rest of the WSL games from the weekend that we've not discussed yet. Manchester United getting back to winning ways, a narrow 2-1 victory over West Ham. Dominique Janssen's fantastic free kick was what sealed the 3 points for Mark Skinner's side. Suzy, an important victory for Manchester United, given they lost their last 2 in the league. It was quite vital for them to kind of get ahead because, you know, when we're heading into the end of 2025.
Yeah, and had the loss to Wolfsburg as well. I think that's the thing that's been most interesting about them at this stage of the season is I think you're seeing the toll of those extra Champions League games have an impact on their WSL form in a way that it maybe wouldn't have happened last season the same way, or, you know, if they hadn't had those games this season, I don't think we would have necessarily seen them suffer those 2 defeats, which, you know, they're the only one of the top 4 to have lost twice so far. So that's the interesting thing for me, is how their squad copes with those added games, but then also how Mark Skinner copes with that, because I mean, they've not got the biggest squad in the world, but he also doesn't really rotate much. So he's kind of having to, and you're getting players coming into games that previously haven't necessarily played a huge amount of minutes or kind of built those relationships in on-pitch, in match-like scenarios, you know, away from the training pitch kind of thing. So it's not necessarily been as fluid as it has been. So yeah, it's really important for them to get the win. Like, they've got a massive game coming up against Lyon. Then they've got Spurs, who obviously we said are in great form. So they've got 2 tough games to end the year. So anything to West Ham, who are struggling big time this season, I think that would have really knocked them ahead of those 2 big games. So they needed something. Yeah,
we'll talk about West Ham in a second, but we mentioned already Gareth Taylor talking about the transfer window. Rich, Mark Skinner all season has been calling for United to be aggressive, is the word he's used this time round in the transfer window. He's really trying to push the board into action. The question is whether he's going to be successful or not.
I think we need the Bill Murray clip, don't we, in Groundhog Day? I think we've been hearing that from Mark Skinner since pretty much day one in the job with Man United, and I think it's frustrating because there's a lot of potential there. I mean, it's Manchester United, it's one of the biggest club names in the world, and every now and again they make a signing and you go, okay, you know, and they signed obviously Rolfer in the summer and Mallard a few years ago, and there's times where you think, okay, they are going to really invest and they're going for the biggest names available, and then, like Suzy said, I think you're starting to see the squad be stretched a little bit. They have looked a little bit tired in recent performances. They got across the line, obviously, on Sunday, but you know, I remember watching them against Man City last month, and it was really stark, you know, looking at who United were bringing off the bench. You know, Hannah Blundell obviously just come back from having a child, and Rachel Williams, you know, and Man City were bringing on, they've got Carolyn on the bench, and Grace Clinton and Bene, you know, at the weekend coming on against Leicester, and you're going, that's just a different level, and that's where United need to get to. Listen, we've all had this conversation, haven't we, over the last 2-3 years with the previous owners and then Ineos about, you know, their investment in the women's team, and I feel for Mark a little bit in that, because we hear this from him before every transfer window. It never quite seems to change, but they do need more. But I think the quality of the starting 11 is very good, and I think Mark and the coaching staff set them up very well. Their defensive record's always been pretty good, apart from that first half against Man City. That was probably as open as they've looked in a long time, but they've always got one of the best defensive records in the league. I think we all said it at the start of the season, they just don't quite have enough for me to sustain it over a 12-month period.
We mentioned West Ham, Marva. It was always going to be a tough day at the office. Illness, injury in the camp, but Martinez's bicycle kick was brilliant, got them back in it. So I feel as if Rhian Skinner could probably take some positives away from the game, but it becomes, now that they've had this another defeat, the Liverpool game is absolutely massive coming up.
Yeah, that game is huge, because I think, you know, you go away from a game like this without a point and you say, yeah, kind of expected. I actually think they played really well. I think they could have taken a lot of positives from how they played in that game. Defensively, I thought they were actually better than I've seen for a while against other teams. But I think Man United actually just played really well against what they were doing. So West Ham played with 5 at the back, which they do, but were very compact, which worked very well for them defensively. But then United just did very well at switching the ball to the widths, and that's where their goal came from, their first goal. And then their second goal is just a brilliant free kick, direct free kick, and there's nothing you can do about that. And I felt for West Ham there, because it reminded me actually of that game they played against Villa, where they did everything right, and then Villa just scored 2 absolute worldies. And you just go, what can you do? What can you do with that? But I think it shows that on the other end of the pitch for them, they just haven't had those players who are quite delivering. Whereas I think last season, towards the end, Martinez really stepped up in that sense. For the last few years, Asai has stepped up so much for them. And this season, it's not quite clicking with some of those players, and they're getting the chances going forward. In that first sort of 25 minutes or so, they were having as many chances in terms of breakaway moments that Man United were having. They just couldn't convert them in the way that you'd expect Man United to convert. But I think in terms of these sort of narrow defeats that we're talking about, I think there's also an element of a lot of these teams are just getting better, and it's not going to be as easy as expecting 3-0s, 4-0s all the time. Even in the Leicester Man City game, which we'll go on to, it wasn't as easy as that scoreline reflects. So I think it is big credit to a lot of these teams that are building and building and building, and we know that they can't quite compete on a squad level. But I think the fact that they've got some players like Martinez, like Gago at Everton, it just means now and then you can do something special. So I think we're going to see exactly, and we're hopefully going to see more and more of that.
I think the coaching is getting better as well across the board.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a team I look at and I think they're a really badly coached team at the moment, which I think is quite exciting, because usually as a team you could identify for the drop straight away, but Liverpool and West Ham at the bottom, and I look at their games and I think they are not destined for the drop. Leicester may be the weakest, but even then, again, as Marva said, decent against City for much of that match. The level of coaching, the quality of the coaching, I think has really massively gone up.
And 3-0 was the scoreline between Leicester and Manchester City. It did look comfortable on paper for Manchester City, but definitely not the case at all. And Andre Jagler said that these are the type of games that his side need to win if they want to win the league. And they were made to work really hard for it, Rich, weren't they? How important was kind of the patience from City in this game?
Yeah, I mean, they're 6 points clear now, aren't they? So they're going to have to get used to teams, certainly in the bottom half. And I think teams have done this to Man City for a while anyway, but now that they are kind of the ones being chased and they are the ones that you're looking at and going, certainly with Chelsea's result at the weekend, you have to say Man City are the favourites now for the title, and the level of player they have in attack, whether that's Bunny Shaw, whether that's Miedema, whether it's Hemp, Fagino, I said there again at the weekend, they brought Carolyn, Clinton, Bene all off the bench. They've probably got now the most stacked attack in the league, and that's before you get to the quality of their, people like Hasegawa, etc., and defenders. But they're going to have to get used to teams frustrating them, and I think they've got every weapon in the book to have that patience, like you said, whether that is the players that start, if you give Bunny Shaw enough chances, I know she missed a few on Sunday, but she will put them in the back of the net. Miedema's back to top form. She had an incredible international break, scored 4 goals in, I think it was half an hour or something in one of the Netherlands games. And, if they don't, like you say, to be able to bring on Clinton, Carolyn being back now, full fitness, and we've seen the impact Bene can have, in big games. She came on at Anfield, she scored the winner against Arsenal earlier in the season. They look like a team that is really well altered. There's no panic. They just went about their business. They got the 3 goals, and they look like a team that is going to be really hard to stop at the moment.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, she did have 5 big chances before scoring 2 of them, Bunny Shaw. But I thought Carolyn was just absolutely fantastic and so key to the game when she came off the bench, Suzy. What impact does she have on the team?
Oh, huge. I mean, she's so dynamic, quick, technically gifted. The pace that she comes into a side with, if you're coming off the bench, I think is really valuable, particularly, a team like Leicester that doesn't have a bench to anywhere near match what City have at their disposal. You're running at very tired legs at that point. But I think she's worthy of a start to really show what she can do. The hard thing is who do you drop to make way in that City side, right? You look at Miedema and Bunny Shaw, and they both got hat-tricks in the international break. Hempers is undroppable, really. You're kind of swimming around, but that's a good problem. Like, I think they're starting to get a squad capable of doing what Man United are struggling with now and competing in the Champions League next season. I mean, that bench, Iman Bene, Grace Clinton, Laura Coombs, Carolyn, like, it's really, really good.
And frightening for the opposition to look at that, which actually is probably why, Leicester are getting quite a lot of plaudits for this game, even though, they shipped 3 goals, essentially, Marva, because they were quite resilient and they worked really hard off the ball.
They were really resilient, and I think they actually nullified City's main threat, which is their wing backs this season, and they did that really well. And I think what's gutting for them, because I think if you go away, you lose to City, you understand it, but what's gutting for them is that they did so well, and then the first goal they concede is an individual error, just a swing and a miss basically, and then that lands at Bonnie Shaw and she's not going to miss from there. And then it just felt like the floodgates kind of opened, heads went down, which you can understand, because I think their whole game plan, in honesty, probably wasn't to get a goal. Their whole game plan was just to sit back and defend and hopefully get that 0-0. So once that one goal goes in, it changes everything for them, and I think it was too hard moving forward. I think for Leicester as well, what I was saying about West Ham and Liverpool with Olsen and Everton with Gago is that Leicester don't have a player like that. They don't have that just one player who can really create something out of nothing. Brian's shown some promise. Kane can do it now and then, but they're not like that next level of talent that you just can give the ball to them and they just power their way through and do something incredible. And this game was another example of that. They did everything they could, but once Carolyn gets on the ball and starts slicing your team open and heads go down, there's very little you can do as a team like Leicester. Yeah, and at the minute they are lucking out that West Ham and Liverpool are not picking up any points. I was about to say terrible. They're not terrible, obviously, but they're just not picking up any points. Final game to go through, London City Lionesses 0, Brighton 1. It was a real scrap between these two sides. And actually, London City hadn't been beaten at home in their last 3 games, but Brighton took all 3 points thanks to Kiko Seiki. And Dario Vidic had called for his side to start well, and they did just that. 6-minute goal, which turned into being the winner. Right, listen, Rich, I want you to tell us a little bit more about the Guardian's annual 100 best female footballers in the world, because the list was released last week. Aitana Bonmati coming out top after votes were cast by a panel of 127 judges, including coaches, former players and media. And of course, as the creator, Rich, there was no one better to get on the pod today. How did the project come about in the first place?
I literally said to Suzy walking in, the last time I was in this building was when we created the top 100. Well, yeah, so, I mean, you might remember, Faye, we started it with the offside rule with Kate, Lindsay, Hayley 10 years ago now. It was kind of out of a bit of stubbornness on my part that the Guardian had a men's one, and I was kind of like, yeah, let's do a women's one, like, why not? And, Kate and Lindsay, like, they're good for anything. Like, they were like, yeah, let's do it. And obviously we'd done quite a bit of women's football stuff with the World Cup in 2015. So we did it for 2 years. It was quite small, 30, 40 judges, people we knew, people in our network. And then, yeah, the Guardian came to us in 2018, I think it was, and basically said, did you steal our idea? And we were like, yes, we did. We stole your format, your rules, everything. And the Guardian were great, to be fair. They were like, listen, it's brilliant. We want to start doing a women's one. Do you want to work together on it? I love seeing the players down, even the bottom end of the list. Like, we had a Northern Super League player in the list this year, the first year for them in Canada. And I think that shows the visibility is growing, and they're the ones that I love. So, yeah, it's been a pretty crazy thing to see it grow.
I just want to give a bit of love to the Offside Rule podcast, because they were the pioneers, actually, in terms of women's football. Yeah. And, Lindsay Hooper, Kate Borsay, Hayley McQueen, and then Natasha Dowie actually joined Lindsay after that. Did brilliant work, brilliant pods as well. And I love that we get, as the Guardian, to kind of showcase the work that you're doing. I'll ask you about 99th and 100th in a second. But Marva, Aitana Bonmati came out on top. Why was she a worthy winner?
I could go on forever about why Bonmati is a worthy winner. I was one of the few people as well for the Ballon d'Or who was saying she's a worthy winner, and everyone's saying that this was a sham of a result. But I just think when you look at what she's done, not just in the last year, but just her consistency. Obviously, she's unfortunately injured at the moment, so we will see a different one next year. But she has just brought so much, talent to the game in a way that excites people. I think Putellas did something similar when she, first was getting her plaudits as well. And we've got some incredible players in this game, but there's something about the way Bonmati plays that I think any football fan can just sit back and appreciate and just stare in wonder. There are games that I've seen her just step up to levels that I've seen very few other players, men's or women's, do. In a year as well where there probably wasn't one standout, I think those top 4 in this list, but also that we've seen across many other lists as well, I think all were worthy winners of the top spot in every single award. So for me, I just love Bonmati as a player, so I would pick her. She's just one of those players that excites people, and a load of trophies on top of that. You can't complain too much, but I feel Suzy might slightly.
I love Bonmati, right? Like, I agree with everything Marva said about watching her in any year, all the time. And, if it was an award and all of the awards were for like the best player to be playing football objectively at any moment in women's football, it's going to be Bonmati, right? Like, until she dies, basically, probably. In the same way that Messi would just win it every year forever more, like, because objectively he is probably the best player to ever have played. But then that Ballon d'Or, like, highlights reel when she won that, and it's her basically like stony-faced after losing the Champions League final, and then stony-faced after losing the Euros final. And you're like, if there's a year where one of the brilliant Spanish players isn't going to win it, it was this year, really. So that's the thing I have an issue with, because I also don't think she was the best Spanish player this year. I think both Alexia and Patri had better years for me for Spain and for Barcelona. So I would still have her right up there. She's still brilliant, but it's her high standard. She didn't kind of reach the levels that she has in the previous years. When you look at the Arsenal players that then went on and did the Euros win as well, or Mariona Caldente, who first season in the WSL, winning the Champions League in the manner that they did, having the season that she did domestically, like, it just felt like the right moment. I feel like they elevated their game to a level that we just, probably didn't expect, versus Bonmati, whose level relative to her ability was lower than it has been in recent years. So but then again, like, awards, they're so subjective, right? We probably would all have the same top 10-ish, but the order would all be entirely different.
Well, this is what I was just going to finish up and ask Rich, because football is subjective. Awards seem to, bring the best and the worst out of everybody. Why is there no perfect formula, and what differentiates the Guardian Top 100 from other lists and awards?
It's so hard for me because I am like a perfectionist, but you have to accept, like, there isn't a perfect list. You could get rid of every judge and just go, you know what, I'm just going to put my 100, and everyone would disagree with it. And I think it was shown in...
Do you live in America?
I think it was 54 judges put Bonmati first. So you're talking less than half, but obviously she got the most, votes overall, and I think that shows how split it was. I was a little bit surprised how much Bonmati did actually win by. I thought it was going to be a lot closer, but I think our top 4 was the same as the Ballon d'Ors, and I do think there's maybe a little bit of recency bias in that. In ours comes straight after the Ballon d'Or. I think people see that and go, Bonmati won the Ballon d'Or again. I'm not saying she's undeserving, she's an incredible player, but I do think there was a few candidates. Yeah, I've had to sort of dig deep a little bit to accept that it's never going to be perfect. There is no perfect when it comes to a list. It's a little bit labour of love. It's a little bit like having a kid. Like, you've got to love it by nature. It annoys you a lot of the time, but when anybody comes for it, you get very protective about it. So it is a little bit like that. But no, it's been good. But yeah, you have to accept that there is no perfect when it comes to a list of 100 names.
No, it's really tricky. Any awards is tricky to do. So you've done an incredible job. By the way, 99th Signa Gaupset of SK Brown and Rachel Kundananji of Bay FC is 100. Go through the whole list. It's on theguardian.com.
Which is mad, really.
I know. That's what I mean. There's two incredible players. By the way, that photograph of Signa, she looks so much like Grace Clinton in that particular photograph. It's terrifying. Anyway, just a little bit of other news to bring you. Bay FC, speaking of which, have announced that former England under-23s manager Emma Coates is going to become their new head coach. She joins the NWSL side after 8 years at the FA and will be joined by her assistant Gemma Davies. San Diego Wave won the second edition of the World Sevens that was held over the weekend in Fort Lauderdale. Jonas Ardevaux and his team banked $2 million with that victory. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you all. Thank you so much. Marva, in on an Everton win. I love that.
Yeah, I'll go and enjoy myself this week until the next game.
Excellent. Rich, lovely to have you. Brilliant debut. Thanks for being part of Guardian Women's Football Weekly history.
No worries, thank you.
Suzy Wrack, we're off for an awards celebratory lunch.
And we've seen each other 2 days in a row. That's wild.
I know. It's incredible. Right, let's just keep this run going. Let's keep our momentum. Chelsea lost theirs.
I don't know if I can cope with more Faye tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a bit much, isn't it? A bit much. Keep having your say. By the way, we are going to do a mailbag episode very soon, I promise you. Send in your questions via X. Email us at womensfootballweekly@theguardian.com. We always read them all. As ever, as well, a reminder to sign up for our bi-weekly women's football newsletter. All you need to do is search Moving the Goalposts Sign Up. The Guardian Women's Football Weekly is produced by Sophie Downey and Silas Gray. Music composition was by Laura Iredale. Our executive producer is Danielle Stevens.
This is The Guardian.